everything that is at stake here. The single greatest threat to our way of life and to the living standards of working people is the agenda of Nigel Farage and the Reform Party. Whatever falsehoods they push, whatever easy answers they peddle, however willing they are to tear communities and families apart, they are not on the side of war.
Reeves declares war on Farage, battle line drawn. Before we dive into what might be the most consequential political showdown in modern British history, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to be here for what's coming next. This isn't just politics as usual anymore. Rachel Reeves just lobbed a grenade into British politics, and the shrapnel is still falling. Speaking at Labour's annual conference in Liverpool, the Chancellor of the Exchequer didn't mince words. Nigel Farage and his Reform UK party are, according to Reeves, the single greatest threat to working people in Britain. Not just a threat, the greatest threat. Let that sink in for a moment. The woman who holds the purse strings to the sixth largest economy in the world has just declared political war, and she's not playing defense. This is extraordinary, isn't it? Here's the Chancellor of the Exchequer, supposedly focused on gilt yields and fiscal forecasts, spending her conference speech not on economic minutiae but on warning Britain about what she sees as an existential danger. Reeves hammered reform with the kind of language you'd expect in a wartime speech, warning they would weaken Britain's ties with the world, undermine the NHS, and risk economic stability. The day before, Prime Minister Keir Starmer said his government is battling Farage for the very soul of Britain. The soul of Britain. When did we last hear that kind of apocalyptic language from Downing Street? But here's what makes this truly fascinating. Labour isn't preparing for a fight with the Conservatives. They are not even pretending anymore. The entire conference has been themed around one message. The next general election, not due until mid-2029 at the latest, will be a straight fight between Labour and Reform. They are skipping over the Tories entirely, treating them as irrelevant, consigning them to the dustbin of history before the votes are even cast. It's audacious, it's risky, and it tells you everything about what Labour's internal polling must be showing them. Because the danger for Labour is absolutely clear, and it's keeping them awake at night. Reform has led national polls since April. Since April. Let that marinate. An expansive YouGov survey last week suggested Farage may be on course to become the next Prime Minister. The next Prime Minister. Nigel Farage, who spent decades as the insurgent, the disruptor, the man outside the tent, could be moving into number 10. No wonder Reeves is sounding the alarm. Whatever easy answers they peddle, however willing they are to tear communities and families apart, they are not on the side of working people, Reeves declared. This is a fight that we must win, and it is a fight that we will win. Strong words, but here's the uncomfortable truth. This message is aimed squarely at voters who have been abandoning Labour after propelling the party to power for the first time in 14 years just last July. 14 months in government, and they are already hemorrhaging support. That has to sting. Now, the business world is paying attention, and they are nervous. Ray Newton-Smith, Chief Executive of the Confederation of British Industry, spelled it out on Bloomberg Radio. There are some policies that Reform have talked about that business are particularly worried about. Business wants to see the UK as an open economy, one that's open to skills and talent from around the world. She cited Reform's plans to limit immigration and cancel Green Project approved by Labour as particular causes of concern. Another senior business leader, speaking anonymously because apparently saying this publicly is too dangerous, admitted there was no alternative to Labour as a party of business right now. But here's where it gets deliciously complicated. Reform saw representatives of 5 of the biggest business lobby groups attend its own conference in Birmingham earlier this month. 5. The corporate world is hedging its bets, keeping channels open, playing both sides. They can read the polls too, and they are not about to be caught on the wrong side of history if Farage does pull off what would be the political upset of the century. Reform's head of policy, Zia Yusuf, wasn't having any of Labour's attacks. The British people are sick and tired of having their legitimate concerns about immigration being sneered at, being belittled and ultimately being insulted for raising these legitimate concerns, he told ITV. And that's the brilliance of Reform's positioning, isn't it? They've managed to frame any criticism of their policies as elite condescension, as metropolitans sneering at ordinary people's concerns. It's devastatingly effective rhetoric. And here's where Labour's position gets even more awkward. Some of the policies announced by Reeves' colleagues don't look terribly different from Reform's proposals. The new Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood announced that settled status for migrants will be contingent on good behavior. Contingent on good behavior. That's language Reform could have written. So what exactly is the dividing line Labour is drawing here? It's getting blurrier by the day. In a roughly 4 to 5 minute speech, which was briefly interrupted by a pro-Palestine demonstrator because apparently no political event in Britain is complete without protest anymore, Reeves listed her government's achievements. Strong economic growth in the first half of this year, efforts to reduce waiting lists in the NHS, evidence that a Labour government works better than the Conservatives. That last bit was deliberate, a direct response to Farage, who regularly claims that Labour and the Tories are the same. Someone familiar with Reeves' thinking confirmed this was calculated, a conscious effort to draw distinctions and reclaim political territory. But Reeves isn't just trying to rebuild public support for Labour. She's trying to rebuild support for herself, and that's a steeper climb. One poll shows she is the least popular chancellor since at least 1977. Since 1977. That's nearly half a century of chancellors, and she's rock bottom. The controversial budget last year that drove up taxes on businesses and helped fuel inflation has left her politically toxic in some quarters. There's only one party that was founded by working people, and only one party that is committed absolutely to defending their interests, Reeves insisted, but the reception was noticeably more muted than the rapturous applause that greeted her on the same stage 2 years ago when Labour was on a glide path to victory. Several delegates filing out of the hall said they appreciated Reeves' efforts to claim back the message of patriotism from Reform and the populist right. Reeves used some form of the word patriotism 7 times in her speech, mirroring Starmer's efforts to adapt to the flag-waving we've seen at anti-immigration rallies. Labour is trying to out-patriot the patriots, to wrap themselves in the Union Jack. Reeves reaffirmed her focus on fiscal responsibility, It's a high
saying
wire
it
was necessary to achieve Labour's longer-term goals of national renewal. In an interview with Bloomberg earlier that day, she ruled out a wealth tax and gave one of her strongest commitments yet to abide by campaign pledges not to raise several key taxes. UK bonds largely held gains throughout the speech, as Reeves stayed clear of announcing any new spending measures that might spook markets. The yield on 10-year gilts was down 3 basis points, slightly outperforming peers from the US and Europe. There are still people who peddle the idea that we can just abandon economic responsibility, can't have any constraints on spending, Reeves said. They are wrong, dangerously so. That was an implicit call-out for Andy Burnham, the mayor of Greater Manchester and Starmer's rival, who said in the run-up to conference that the party shouldn't be in hock to the bond markets and has been openly critical of Starmer's leadership. So Labour isn't just fighting Reform. They are fighting internal critics who think the party has become too cautious, too timid, too captured by financial orthodoxy. Many in the party credit Reeves' fiscal restraint were preventing Labour from enacting change people can actually feel. That's damning stuff. So where does this leave us? Labour is staking everything on framing the next election as a binary choice between themselves and Reform, hoping voters will recoil from Farage populism when it matters. But Reform is surging in the polls. Business is keeping its options open, and Labour's own base is restless. Reeves is trying to sound the alarm about Reform while defending her own record and maintaining fiscal discipline that's making her party question whether they actually won the last election or just inherited the Conservatives' austerity playbook with a red rosette pinned to it. This is British politics at its most volatile, most unpredictable, most utterly compelling. The battle lines are drawn. The stakes couldn't be higher. And the outcome is anyone's guess. If you want to stay ahead of every twist, every turn, every seismic shift in this extraordinary political moment, subscribe now. Because at UK Connors, we're tracking every move in the fight for Britain's future, and you won't want to miss what